also be hearing from Joshua Kalfas, and we have everybody muted as we have with the other webinars. If you have a question, please use the chat feature in GoToMeeting. On the agenda today, Josh will be going over the resources on the SLEIS homepage. He will go to the facility homepage and go through the steps of using the template. He will download the template, review a single facility template, the data in there, add data, and take it through validation by importing it into SLEIS. He will discuss the differences between a single facility and the bulk operations templates within SLEIS. And then he will go over the steps using the bulk facility template, where you can do fill out data for multiple facilities and load it. So he'll demonstrate how to specifically start, view, and print single or several facility reports. And for the bulk operations, he'll enter some data and take that through validation and then submit using the bulk feature. There will be several points throughout this webinar where we will look at the questions and answer those. Before I hand it off to Josh, I did want to go over one question that came in after the webinar last time from Monday. And this person did not leave their contact information when they sent in the question through SLEIS. So I imagine it was somebody from the webinar, so I will read their question. It says, will facilities that were newly permitted in 2019 be automatically uploaded to SLEIS, or will they have to be entered manually by the company? I was trying to view the facilities that need reporting for 2019, but there was not an option past 2018. So the answer to that is that we will be adding the newly permitted facilities into SLEIS for you. We have not done that yet, but we are planning on doing that this week. And we have not generated the 2019 reports yet for any facilities. So you won't be able to very clearly identify which ones need to report until we do that. That will be done this month as well. I will note, so most of that is because we here at DEQ have not put that in for you yet. But I will note that you will need to build equipment and all the associated records in the inventory when it's a newly permitted facility. We do not grab that information from your permit. So in that sense, you will be building the inventory from the ground up for the first year. With that, I will hand it off to Joshua Kalfas.
Thanks, Carrie. Hey, everybody. This is Josh again. For those of you who were last time, welcome back. Let me get to where I need to go. Okay, so for today, we're going over the template submission into individual facility and the bulk processes for multiple facilities at a singular company. We're going to start off by going to a single facility. In case you've never been on the website, this is the first webinar you're attending, I suggest going back and listening to the prior two webinars we've presented. The first one, given by Grant, covers permissions, users, different roles, things like that. And the one given yesterday, or no, not yesterday, Monday, that covers how to submit your inventories through the applications interface. A lot of that material will be relevant here because certain things need to be done within SLEIS through the applications interface before the template files can be used. So let me just navigate real quick to the emissions inventory group and to SLEIS. Log in. Now on this page, I'm going to go over a couple of these things that are linked here in a little more detail as opposed to last time. On this page, we have SLEIS code tables. This is simply an Excel file that has all reference code material that's used within SLEIS. We've provided that here for anybody to use, especially for users who have large information systems and are wanting to take the information from their system, transform it, and generate reports that other users can then use to input information into SLEIS either through the applications interface or through some of the template files. Something I wanted to point out to you here specifically is that although we've included all code tables that you might come across within SLEIS at every level of information for objects like a facility and a mission unit, a release point, only those tables that are followed by an asterisk star, can't remember what it's called, by this little symbol will show up in the template files for use there. Also, the codes that show up in these files will be used anywhere across years within SLEIS. Those that I'm going to show you in a few minutes, which get downloaded with your template files during the process, are only specific to the year that you're operating in. Just wanted to point that out here right now. And for anybody who may have questions about something that we may not touch on in depth here today, there are two files on the landing page. One is the import specification file for a bulk process. The other is the import specification file for the individual report homepage process. Both of these are the template processes. If you were to open one of these files, it's going to give you a lot of detailed information about them. For example, if anyone's interested in figuring out what information and how it's going to be formatted, this will give you a lot of detail on the CSV file stuff. Not only that, the fields that are used, those that might be just informational, and the formatting of the individual fields, plus any specific business rules that apply to that field when you submit your templates. So these are very helpful. They're pretty in-depth. Take advantage of them. That's what they're there for. So let me go, I think, back. I can't see. Hold on. There we go. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and log in. Last time we were here, I showed you guys how to submit a singular facility. We're going to be going back to that same facility and picking up from that facility to use the template process. Now, when you log in, as before, you land on your My Companies page, and on the right-hand side of the screen for each company, there are two buttons. You can use this button to navigate to all facilities that are associated with your company. And again, you can use the other button to navigate to the specific reporting year, make a selection about the year, and then take advantage of some of the different bulk processes. I'm going to be showing you the individual facility first. And so to navigate to that facility, I'm just going to navigate to this facility like I did last time. We're going to be using this top one here. Going to be going to the 2019 report. And you'll find the same screen for the facility inventory for this specific facility in 2019 as we did last time. Now, what I've done is I went in, made a couple of changes to the facility inventory. I specifically took an emission unit that we had previously reported as temporarily shut down and changed that to an operating emission unit. That's the only change I've made. Outside of that, everything else for the facility inventory is complete. Now keep in mind, whenever you're using the template process, whether it's for the individual facility or through the bulk processes, that your facility inventory needs to be complete before you begin doing your process emissions. Just as you cannot see specific process emissions within the application, if you had a specific emission unit temporarily shut down or a process with the last emission year, those pieces of information will not be given to you in the template files that you download to be used. So that's why it's important to make sure that you have everything in place. When I am ready to begin using the templates, I simply just come down here and download the template. Now, right before we do, I want to jump in here into the process emissions for two reasons. One, some of you may not have been here last time, and I want to show you what this appears like. And then two, I want to show you the information that exists for the process emissions before we download the template. You can see I have 3 emission units. This first one is an emergency generator. It's gotten a little bit of information here, but not a whole lot. It's gotten some information about its throughput, that we're reporting it. Everything here is blank because it was previously set to temporarily shut down. But it does have a lot of pollutants. Now these pollutants carried forward from the previous reporting cycle. and this individual emission unit had a lot of detail on the pollutants that were being reported. So you don't have to go in and redo all of your pollutants if they've already been brought forward from the previous reporting cycle. Well, I guess I should show you another thing. On some of these pollutants, for instance, CO, you can see that it has an emission factor, the units for the emission factor, VOCs, the same thing, but there are no emissions here. And there's a large number of pollutants. If I go to another one of the processes, this process is currently not being reported, so everything for this is going to be blank. I have no emissions. This last process is the one that we worked with last time the most. This one is set to being reported. It already has information from our previous demonstration because I reported emissions for this one. Operations, emissions, and an emission value, even though it's really small. Okay, so now that you've seen that, you have a little bit of reference for where we're going. I'm going to go ahead and download the template file. When I download the template, it's going to do it on screen within the application. It's going to give me a file. It's going to be a zipped file, downloaded to my downloads file on my computer. And when I open that, I will find 5 files. 3 files. 3 of them will be used in my submission. 2 of them are used for providing reference information. Before I show you the templates, I'm going to go ahead and open up the reference files. 2 of those, reference data values and reference throughput values, are going to have the information that you will use to populate the template. You can see here that the field headers are attribute name, value, also known as code, description, and if there are any notes with that specific record. Now, this is a very flat file that's taking a few different code tables, pushing those together into one file and then giving it to you. So the attribute name is the field attribute within SLEIS where this information will be entered at. And you can see that there are several different throughput unit types that you can choose. Now, whenever you're entering information into templates, although we've provided you a description to help you make more sense of the value, be sure that you use the value column or the codes when putting that information into the template. So you have throughput units. Let's go down further, throughput type, many throughput materials. Let's go a little faster. And then calculation methods, emission factor units, and finally pollutant codes. Just as on the front end of the application, it will give you both the code and the description. It does the same thing here, giving the code and the description. The other file, reference throughput values. This file is providing you the list of SCCs where the application knows there's a certain combination of, expand this a little bit, of throughput unit, throughput type, and throughput material. When you use these, it will enable you to take advantage of the AutoCalc functions within the application. So this is a tool to assist you in identifying the best combination of these 3 to use when you're submitting your information through the template. On the front end of the application, it's automatically reducing that to you since you have the option to choose many things to the templates. We're providing that here to help you guys out. And as you can see, any individual any individual SCC may have more than one option. You can just choose which one you want, same as you would on the front of the application. Right, so then the 3 files that you're going to be working with that have been downloaded are the processes, the process supplemental parameters, and the process emissions. My suggestion is to actually work them exactly in that order. First processes, then supplemental parameters if needed, and process emissions. Opening up this file and looking at it, you can see that the 3 processes that we just viewed on the front of the application show up here with the information that was already existing in the database. Whenever you download a template file, no matter when you download it, it's going to return to you all of the information as it exists in the database at that point in time. So if you make multiple submissions, it will have all of that information there, and the next time you download it, it will contain all of that in the download. You can see this first process is reported is true. The second one is false. The third one is true. Some other information here. Let me do this so you can see the fields a little bit better. The first two fields are identifiers. You should never change these fields. This is the mission unit ID and the process ID. After that, all of the remaining columns will be used by you when reporting outside of those that DEQ does not use within the application at all. So we do use is reported, is confidential, these other fields. We do not use up start time, up stop time, actual days per period. Now, if you enter these values on the front end of the application, whenever it attempts to automatically calculate the actual hours of operation, it also does that for this field. You just simply can't see it in the application. When this appears in the file, you can ignore this field altogether. And the last are the ozone season, summer season, and CO season days. We do not use these fields either. You can leave these blank. You'll notice here that all these fields are pretty much just text fields. The file is a CSV file, so pretty straightforward. I'll go ahead and show you the other two files before I make any changes. The second file, which I suggest doing, is the process supplemental parameters. Now, all information within this file is considered optional. You don't need to do anything here. If you do happen to choose a calculation method, such as a formula, where then it will want to reference the values, the parameters for this field, then that will become required in those instances. Beyond that, it's just optional. You can see here that most of them are blank because we didn't do any in the last demonstration other than the ultra low sulfur diesel percent here. Each process has the ability to report any of these. Again, this is an extremely flat file, so every process will show up here with the option to input those parameters. If you have a lot of processes as a single facility, you'll have a very long file. Just remember to look for the machine ID and the process ID to help you narrow that down. The last file is the process emissions file. In this file, it is a small file data-wise, but it can be a little surprising if your first 2 or 3 times using it. So as with the other files, you have the emission unit identifier, process ID. Here now you also have the code, calculation method, emission factor. You also have stack test date and comments. A few things about this. Whenever you're making a submission of a template, and I'll demonstrate this in a few minutes, whenever you're making a submission of a template for process submissions, the application will look at the calculation method type that you are submitting, and then conditionally require or conditionally operate based on that method. So for example, if you were to choose the code for stack test, and then report that, it would also require you to include a stack test date. Here, these codes are, I believe, if I recall properly, referencing AP42 values. Because of that, it knows what those emission factors are and will be automatically doing calculation of emissions based on that. So if I were to come over here and put in an emissions quantity, that value would get ignored. The application would then, based off of the information I gave it about emission factor, method, value, and other information which I don't see here, such as control devices, sequences, and series of control devices, it will take all of that information together and then calculate the emissions for me. Okay, so once you I'm going to I cheated and made a file ahead of time. Sorry, makes it easier for me. So the 3 files that I'm going to be uploading are right here. You never want to change file names, just as you never want to change column header names, because the application is going to be using these exactly as they are when it's processing. If anything's changed, it's going to fail, so don't change names. The first one, I've gone in and made some changes to. I have changed this first process by adding in the throughput, the average hours per day, per week, per year, or days per week, and the weeks per year, sorry. Total hours, seasonal fractions. On the second one, I've changed that to is reporting is true and is confidential to true, in addition to including other information about the process as before. On the third one, this is where the information already existed. I left the 260 there. I'm not worried about that. I just didn't do it for the other 2 processes because this field is not being used by DEQ. If I wanted to, I could delete that altogether. That's perfectly fine, but I'm not worried about it right now. Now, when I was filling this information out, I also used that reference file to make sure I chose the best option for throughput unit, throughput type, and throughput material, being sure that I used the codes when I entered that information. Do this for you so you guys can see a little bit better. There we go. I've also included the throughput values that will be used if there's any calculation done automatically by the application. Show you the other 2 files, and then right before I upload, I'll stop for some questions and see if anybody has any. On supplemental parameters, I've left most of them blank. I did keep the one that I had entered previously, but I also entered 2 that I know are going to fail, just so I can trigger some validation here and in other places, and let you see what that looks like. On the process emissions file, I've done a few things here I want to point out to you. So as you saw before, the only process on the application that had emissions previously was here with a small emissions value. What I've done is I've gone in and changed not only some of the pollutant codes and calculation methods, but also some of these values. I'm just going to cover those real quick because I've done this intentionally to trigger some validation errors and to make some changes to the application at the same time, the data that's there. So within the application, we saw that that emergency engine had a lot of pollutants with it, especially HAPs, a lot of individually listed HAPs. For instance, I know that this code here stands for formaldehyde. What I'm going to do is I'm going to delete these altogether and show you what happens. For CO, that existed within the application, as did these others for the emergency engine. I changed the calculation method a little bit. It was in the other file using a manufacturer, I can't remember off the top of my head. It was using a non-AP42 emission factor. I've changed these here to be AP42, and I've changed these to enable auto calculation in a combination with the other values for the throughput material, throughput type, and throughput emission units that I used. Now, because this is going to be calculated automatically, I've set some crazy high values for emissions over here. These values are obviously wrong, but I've done this intentionally so you can see what happens. Same thing here. Finally, we saw that the only process that had emissions was the emergency engine. The file that I downloaded returned pollutants for both the pre-existing process that I turned from temporarily shut down to operating, and the process that I had previously reported pollutants for, but it did not give me a pollutant for this process because none had yet existed. I've added that record here as opposed to the front end of the application. And I've also left that value blank completely right now. So, before I hit submit, oh, I wanted to save that, darn it. Are there any questions right now?
So it looks like we've got one question in right now. They've asked, when will Monday's webinar be posted on the DEQ website? Currently, I only see the first one, and I missed Mondays. We are looking at it right now and are hoping to have it posted in the next few days. Second, another question just came through. Do you have to use the templates? That's a great question. No, you do not. You can fully just use the front end of SLEIS, what we call the user interface, to enter all of your data and submit. The templates come in handy if you have a large facility that has a lot of emission units and you're wanting to put in all of your throughput data for the processes and your emission amounts in a template format, or if you have a lot of facilities under one company, which Josh will demonstrate the multiple facility template use soon. But you do not have to use the templates.
Also, Joe, to answer your second question, no, the fields that aren't required cannot be shaded within the CSV. It's a CSV file and doesn't maintain formatting, so that can't be done there.
And the question with that was, could the columns not requiring information be shaded? Next question, why display fields being ignored by DEQ? Josh, can you navigate to the spec file?
Yeah, sure.
This may,
if I can see what's going on here.
This is on the SLEIS homepage. There is a specification file that goes over the fields that Oklahoma DEQ is not using. Keep in mind that the SLEIS application is utilized by over a dozen state and local agencies across the nation, and we have had it customized for our state, for our use. One of the big customizations was implementing this template use in a fashion where you could use it for multiple facilities at once and being able to submit multiple facilities at once. But some of the fields so Josh has got it pulled up right now, and like op start time and stop time, that's not a requirement for Oklahoma emission inventory reporting. It could be for other states. Another one I think he pointed out in the template, the ozone season days, that's not a requirement right now because we're in attainment. So there's a variety of reasons we aren't using some of the fields, but it's really because those are not required for one reason or another. But we could not get those removed from the template without paying for another customization, and that was prioritized lower than the multiple facility customization that we got. Another question came through, is there a code for DEQ approved calculation method?
Yeah, there is. I'll show you that here in a second.
like that's all the questions we have at this time. So you can go ahead and continue, Josh.
Okay. And that idea of not including fields within the template files that aren't being used by Oklahoma, that is on our list of improvements to make. It's just there's a lot of things on a list, and that's a little bit lower right now. Okay, so there we go. All right, so for this process, someone had just asked if there was an OKDEQ specific code for method. I come down here to the list of possible codes, or look on that reference set, you can see that. Okay, you can see here OKDEQ approved method. There's 4 different codes: no control, no emission factor, post control, and pre-control. These 4 codes should only be used if your method does not fit one of the many others. It is highly unlikely that anyone here should be using any of these 4. So be certain to use those that apply. If you don't, it'll be like, hey Josh, come look at my facility, which I don't want to do unless you make me. So, okay, so back to the template. So if I come in here and import data, it's going to ask me for the 3 files. It makes it very clear what the file name should be and what I need to do. I browse. I believe I just copied it to my desktop to make it easy. Processes, open, browse, supplemental parameters, open. Nope, I just did it wrong. Browse, process emissions, open, then browse, supplemental parameters. You can see I've loaded each file. Each file has the same name. Got the path there in case I need it. Once I'm done, I hit continue. And then on the screen, it will give me feedback. Here it says, hey, I've gotten some errors. This calculation method has expired. And then the value must be greater than 0 and less than 100. So these 2 are the ones I intentionally did incorrectly. This value must be between 0 and 49. And I can tell you right now, this is because someone used permit factors, which is retired. Okay, so I have 2 options. I could either go to the templates, or I could go to the application interface, but we're using templates today, so let's go do that. So if I go to the process supplemental parameters, which I intentionally did, I would just scroll down and say, yeah, of course it is. I didn't want those to begin with. Everything else is good. So then here, looking at the codes, I believe it's these 3, 60 under 3, because it had mentioned CO, NOx, and I think it was VOC. Now, if I'm not certain, I can look at the reference data values. Going in, whoop, too far. Looking at the methods, and you notice that 60 underscore 3 is not on this list because I should not be using that code in this year. What the reporter had previously done is used permit factors, which is now a no longer permitted code that is being replaced by the OKDEQ approved method. So 10 underscore 3, 0, 1, or 2. I would use one of those 3. So here, I'm going to just change it from 60 to 10. Hit save. And then do the upload process again. I might get another hit. Oh, it went through, great. So here it says I have successfully imported 3 process records and 9 process emissions records. Let's take a look on the front end and see what that looks like. If you recall, we had the emergency generator with a lot of pollutants. It now has that. I've given it the throughput, the operations. When I deleted those pollutants from the file and did not submit them, it deleted those pollutants from the application. You cannot delete a process when reporting process emissions. You cannot delete information about operations. However, when you submit emissions, you need to submit your full set for all pollutants with all information. Otherwise, if you do not submit a pollutant, the application will say, I'm not supposed to be there, and delete that pollutant. There's an easy way for you to keep the number of pollutants in the suite of pollutants you want to submit clean and not have to worry about the application. If I look at the individual pollutants, oh, it skipped because of that. The 1000 went through because I used the OKDEQ method, and there's no auto calculation going on there. Same thing with the NOx. If I look at the PM 10, you can see that even though I reported 1,000 tons of emissions, when I submit it to the application says, hey, no, you're using an AP42 emission factor. I know what that emission factor is. You've aligned your emission units with what I need for the factor. I'm doing the math and reporting a proper value. Same thing with PM 2.5. Wherever you attempt to submit emissions for a pollutant, where that pollutant is using a method which triggers auto calculation and other things going on with the math, it will ignore the value you submit. So be careful with that. Be sure you are paying attention to what you're doing. So that is how you use the template at an individual facility. If I wanted to, I could go and continue to validate the report and then initiate the submission, but I'm not going to. I'm just going to go ahead and stop here. If I wanted to continue work, come back later at a different date, I could again download the template. It's going to give me those files with all of the information I just submitted. And I can just grab that, keep a copy of it. It's all right there. How I want to do it is really up to me and my preferences, but you do have the ability. So are there any questions right now before I transition over to some of the bulk process stuff?
Looks like we have one question from what we were talking about previously. If DEQ must keep certain fields they do not use, could these be moved to the last columns of the template? I think even that would be a customization. So we would rather, once we have some money to get SLEIS even better than it is already, we would probably focus on getting those fields removed altogether instead of moved to the end. But definitely look at the specification file so you know which fields are being ignored, which ones you don't need to gather data on, and which are required. The only question at this time.
Cool. I'll go ahead and continue on. So what I'm going to show you now is on the application, the different functions you have for engaging with the bulk processes. So when you come to your company, you'll land on this My Company's page, and you'll be able to navigate to a specific company, as before, either looking at all facilities or going to a specific reporting year and working with those facilities under that reporting year. When you navigate to My Company, you see all facilities, and something I want to point out to you here is this generic compressor station number 2, where I have no specific roles at the facility. Now, Grant's already covered this before. I just want to point it out here because it will impact some of the stuff I'm showing you today. For my roles at the company, I'm both an administrator and an editor. I've also set facility-specific roles to be a submitter at certain facilities and not at others. The viewer is just a default role you have to have if you're going to do anything else. So if I'm an editor at a company, it supersedes my viewer roles at the facilities, and I can also edit compressor station number 2. but I do not have submit permissions. Also, when I go to look at the 2019 reporting requirements, you can see that generic presentation number 2 is completely missing from the list. Whenever you're looking at your facilities and wanting to know what my company has, always go to the full facility list. This will only show you those that have a 2019 reporting requirement that DEQ has identified. If you find either a facility missing from your list or a facility that is not showing up under your reporting requirements where you believe it should, it is your responsibility to contact us and let us know. We are working off the information you have already provided us. So, on the bulk processes, just working from the top of the screen and then going down, you can either view print reports, start reports, import the data files, validate reports, submit reports. There's a few different things you can do. And anytime you make a selection, it's going to populate those facilities that apply to the action you're wanting to do. If I want to go back and look at past inventories to see if I have anything going on, I can. For instance, if I have an amendment I'm completing for a facility, or if I've completed an amendment and something's waiting to be submitted, I would be able to see that. Now, something that must always be done, regardless of whether you're using the individual facility path to use the templates, or if you're coming over here to the bulk process path, a report for the facility must always be started before you can do anything. Here on the screen, you can see I have some facilities where the status is in process. For instance, the facility I was just working with, and some others that are not started. There's no box that I can check next to them because I have not started them yet. So I can do nothing other than start reports for those. When I start reports, I can choose either a single facility, several of them, or all of them. Here, I'm just going to go ahead and start all of these. Whenever you initiate a bulk process, you'll get this little note in the front. All of the bulk processing occurs asynchronously. That is, you send a request off to the database, to the application. It will process in the background. You don't need to sit around waiting for it at your computer. Once it's done, it will send you an email saying, I have completed, here are the results of what was successful and what was not. Until then, it will show you batch in progress. Now, if I navigate to email, which I hope is still open, it is. I've already previously done this once for these facilities, so it saves us a few moments. You can see that the email I received says, hey, you had a batch operation you wanted to complete. Let me do it this way so you can see a little more easily. Hey, I'm SLEIS, and you wanted to do a batch operation, specifically the view print reports action. It will give you an attachment which shows you the summary results for the action. In other words, you wanted to start reports for these 5 facilities. Did that work or not? It will say whether it completed or it failed and give you a reason why. Below that, you have a link. Yeah, and once you navigate there, it'll take you to the application. If you were logged in, it will take you to the page. If you're not logged in, it will ask you to log in and then take you to the page. But you have the file that was sent to you, if anything. There should not really be anything in this file because I'm just starting reports. Oh wait, I'm viewing and printing reports here. Sorry. Let me go back and show you that before I open the file and show you. Oh, did I just close it? Oh, 2019. Okay, so those 5 reports that I started have started. Whenever you start reports, it will not send you an email because you're simply starting reports. If you view print reports, which is what I did, in order to look at that file, it's going to contain a report for each one of the facilities. Now, you're simply viewing the information that exists within the database in a report format, so it's giving you that report as it appears at that point in time. Whatever data is in the database for 2019, whether it's complete or not, it's just going to grab it, stick it in a report, send it off to you. So you can see here, I have my company information, my facility information, release points, release points, control devices, emission units, processes, and no emissions, because I have not started that yet. There we go. All right, so I've shown you start reports. I've shown you view reports. It's the same action. You just make the selection, and then you receive that email with the link and the result CSV. On each one of these screens, you have the download templates button. You can download templates for any facility that has a checkbox next to it. On the very bottom of the screen, you can see test my FAQ is in the submitted status. If I was to download this template, it would grab all of the information in SLEIS as it exists at the time of submission, which is pretty much a CSV record of all the information I send into my report. However, if I was to attempt uploading that, it wouldn't take it because it is not in process. So what I need to do now is I need to take these 5 facilities. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, yes. I'm going to download the templates. And it's going to do the batch process. I'm going to wait for this, so it's going to take about a minute. Are there any questions real quick that I can answer?
Looks like we've got 2 questions. How do we keep certain information confidential? There is a mechanism in the user interface where you can check a box. Be sure to look at the specifications file document, so that you can understand what it's actually doing. Actually, on the user interface, it tells you which fields are being held confidential. So actually, it is pretty intuitive. You can't hold everything confidential, and SLEIS tells you exactly which ones it will redact out of the copy of record.
The specific place that appears at is at the process emissions level. So when you're going in either through the application or through the template files, you can indicate that that process has CBI.
Second question for a facility, excuse me, that is new in 2019, that has not yet commenced operation in 2019. Do we have to set up or submit in SLEIS for the 2019 reporting year? So in emissions inventory, a newly permitted facility in 2019, we are going to default to have a reporting requirement because we don't know that you haven't started operations. We assume that you have. So there will be a 2019 report that you need to answer for. We do not want you to build out the equipment and processes, though, until you actually start up. And the reason for that is I've seen it numerous times that somebody has built out their inventory, but then they swap out the engine before they actually start up, and then that's just junk data that we have in the database. So don't build it out yet. Just set the facility to not yet built, and then that facility should be good to go, good for submitting. That's all the questions right now.
Okay, cool. Perfect timing because I had to refresh and it was there. So you can see that the batch operation for starting the reports that I showed you a few moments ago sent me the email, summary result and no link. And then the batch operation for obtaining the templates for these facilities was returned. Now you can see here that only 3 of the 5 reports that I chose successfully generated. If I open up the summary results for what I wanted to do, it'll show you why. So here, on this first facility, it was completed. On the fourth and fifth, it was completed. But on these two facilities, it did not complete, and that's because no emission units or processes were found. These two facilities, I have previously gone in and sent the facilities to temporarily shut down. If you recall, you have to ensure that your facility inventory for the emission units, release points, etc., are all properly set, and the templates will only give you those processes where you should be able to report. Because the facility is temporarily shut down, there are no processes to report for either of those facilities, and that's why it did not generate a template file for those facilities. I'll only be using these three here. So let me do this. I want to close that. Now that's just the summary results. I'm going to go to the link to get the files. Here I can download them. You'll see that just as before, I have reference throughput values, reference data values. That is obtained anytime you do a template file download. And again, I have the three files I'll use. Now there's a difference between these files and the files I was showing you earlier. Let's take a look. For the bulk processes and submission, you're going to have significantly more fields of information than you would at a single facility. This is where I tell you about the Ghostbuster protocol. So you never want to cross streams. If you're using the bulk process template stuff, don't try to submit that at the individual facility. If you're doing an individual facility, don't try to submit that through the bulk process. Keep the streams uncrossed. The reason why is because you can't, it causes a lot of problems. You might be able to do it if you really know what you're doing and it's an emergency and you need to, but you don't really want to unless it's like the end of the movie. So you can see that reporting year, you have reporting year on all these files. You have the company ID, company name, facility ID, facility name, emission unit ID, emission unit description. Here we had them add in several more fields of information. One, because it was required since you're having several facilities of information all in one file. And then two, because it becomes really confusing if you don't have descriptions along with the identifiers. I think most of you will prefer using this process even for a single facility versus the template upload at the individual facility report. I keep on going over, you see I have process ID, process description, and then after that, the exact same information as the other file is reported, is confidential, throughput quantity, units, etc., etc. Now, for the sake of time, I'm going to go in here and make a quick change. And I'm going to change all of the processes for the facility that I have downloaded in addition to the one we were working with before to false for is reported. Whenever you download any of the template files, it will come to you as a zip file simply because you could have one or hundreds of facilities. There's no way to tell. You can download it. It's going to come to your desktop and you can unzip it. I got ahead of myself and didn't do that.
There are a couple questions on the templates. If they are already filled for us by DEQ from previous years' reporting, we should not change anything, correct? Well, without knowing the situation, which I might have a more specific answer if you had a question about your facility, the data at your facility. But overall, I would say look over what is in there, and if it's not correct, if it's not descriptive of your facility, then you should change it. Keep in mind, we did have to migrate this data from our existing database, and some of the fields are different, some of the options are different. We migrated all of the calculation methods over. The controls are very different. They're not at the pollutant record. So it was hard to identify if you had the same control device at multiple units or only one control device for multiple units. So look it over. If you have any questions, if you're unsure, just give us a call or email us. Next question, will DEQ send out email reminders to responsible officials to ensure they're going to go into SLEIS to set up their password? Yes, we have already sent out emails to responsible officials and main facility contacts, letting them know about our new SLEIS user account forms, and that they can go in, and we've given them instructions on how to set up their password. We've let them know we gave you an account, and here's how you can go in and set up your password. So we did already do that. Next question, if a facility temporarily shut down during the reporting year, should its status show operating and not temporarily shut down? So if it operated at all during that year, then it needs to be operating status. So you would say you operated for a couple months in 2019, then it needs to be operating. And then say you shut down in March of 2019, well, you're reporting your emissions for 2019, and then in 2020, when you have another inventory report due, well, you'll be reporting in 2021, but you've got your 2020 inventory. If you're still shut down, and you were shut down all of 2020, then you could set it to temporarily shut down. So remember, if you operated at all, it needs to be operating status. Those are all the questions at this time.
Okay, sorry about that. Let me jump back in here. So now I've cleaned up my download box, gotten to the right files. So I've gone in, as I just mentioned to you, and set the processes as not being reported. This is like saying, hey, all of my pollutants are below the reporting threshold. I don't need to tell you this year. Set those all to false here. And because of that, I don't need to worry about anything else at all. For supplemental parameters, the information we had for the prior facility will be in this file. It also has, in addition to the fields you saw earlier, again, reporting year, company information, facility information, emission unit information, process information. Keep in mind that even though these descriptions are provided to you here, you should not change them. In fact, if you wanted to change them, the application is going to ignore them completely when you upload. It's only looking at the identifiers. If you need to make any changes to any of your facility inventory, again, do that through the application. Finally, process emissions, same thing, the additional fields of information compared to the other individual templates at the facility. You can see that the information I uploaded through the other template still persists in this download as well. And even though I'm going to report all of the processes at this other facility is not being reported, I'm going to go ahead and leave all of these pollutants here along with their information. The reason why is because if I delete these out of this file, I will lose them in the future. So me leaving them here is less work for me in the future. Once I have that all ready to go, I can say I have now completed my information gathering and reporting. I want to import my data files into 2019. Anything that is in process can be checked. I'm going to go ahead and do the same 5 as I did previously, even though we know that 2 of them did not download, and 1 of them I do not have reporting rights to. So if I do import data, same process as before, I just choose the files. Hit continue. Now on this one, it is a batch process again. It's not going to give me the results on screen. I have to let that process and then give me an email notice letting me know how it went. I go ahead and delete this. Yeah, delete that. And it's really slow right now.
Another question, how can I view a webinar that I missed? We have posted the first webinar on the website where you register for these webinars. It's the Emissions Inventory Workshop page. So the first one has been posted. We plan to post Mondays and hopefully today's webinars in the next few days.
All right, so I got the email. Now I'm going to go ahead and look. You can see that 0 of 5 reports were successfully imported. Let's take a look at the batch summary to figure out what it told me. I not wrote.
I think you grabbed the template ones that were.
Oh, did I?
I think you grabbed the wrong one.
Okay. Well, this is what happens when you grab the wrong file. It says you're an idiot.
Another question has come in. I guess no wet signature hard copy is required, correct? All is taken care of through the submittal or approval process. That is correct. Only the responsible official will have a submitter role, and now that we have multiple accounts in SLEIS, it's not just one person that, one RO that hands out the password to somebody at the facility or their consultants. It's even more secure than Redbud was. So yes, the electronic submission is sufficient for submitting. There's no additional wet signature paper to be sent. Next question, could you provide a list of what information can be changed, can't be changed, and what information is required for the batch uploads? That is in the SLEIS specifications file. It will let you know which fields are, all of that, are required, are optional, which ones you shouldn't fill out. So check that out on the, it looks like Josh is bringing it up off of the SLEIS homepage. And he'll scroll down and give an example. Reporting year required, company ID required, and then those green ones are optional. Where it defaults to something. Another question, so can the bulk upload templates be used to add new processes, emission units, etc., or only to update existing ones? The bulk templates are, just as well as the single facility template, is only for existing records. You have to build out your emission unit and your process and control equipment and release points on the front end, the user interface of SLEIS, before you can utilize the template to fill out the throughput, hours, and emissions. That's all of the questions right now. Are we waiting on another batch?
Yes, I've put the right file in now.
Excellent.
So yeah, this is probably gonna happen to you guys. At least you can see what happens. And it's recorded for all time. Yay! I'm gonna look like an idiot in the future. So here we go. Sorry, this is running so slow, guys. All right, so 1 of 5 reports was successfully imported. That's fine. So view the attached batch summary. This is kind of what I was expecting. So here you can see that for 2 of the facilities, quality issues were identified. Another one was completed, and then these 2, which were temporarily shut down, even though I tried to import something where I knew it was going to fail, I did this intentionally because it will tell you, even on the upload, if you attempt to submit to a facility that does not have data within the file that you're submitting, or if you attempt to submit to import data to a facility that has not been started or has been submitted and you can't edit, it's going to give you that information back and say it failed for some reason. Now, where we're at is fine. I'm going to continue with the batch process because from this point forward, it's the exact same regardless of the number of facilities you have, whether you have 1 facility, 10, 100 facilities, it doesn't matter. I've now imported the data. I can validate the reports. The one I want to do is in process, the very first one we worked with earlier. I'm just going to click Validate Reports. It's going to, again, do this asynchronously. Should happen fairly quickly because it's already been done when everything's good. It will generate an email, again, returning that to you. On the emails that are generated, it's going to push that through SLEIS's quality assurance protocols and look at all of the individual pieces of data together. Then it will return to you all of the places where validation failed because the data was not in good shape. Then you could refer to that individual record, go to that emission unit or process emissions record, and make corrections as needed. That's largely covered in the earlier presentation from Monday. Refer back to that if you need. Once the batch process is complete, you can see that the facility drops off the list altogether. It's no longer able, you can no longer access it to start the report, import data, or validate the reports because you validated it. And in that process, it automatically changes the status of that facility to 2019 emissions report. Oh, where'd it go? Nope. Yeah, 2019 emissions report is ready for submission. You can see that here across all of your facilities. Or if you were to go to the batch process for 2019 and look for facilities you want to submit reports for, you find it here. You then click that box for any number of facilities you wish to report, and then initiate the submission. Just like the other process for an individual facility, you click the various buttons, agreeing to the information here, hit continue, and then again the batch process will initiate, run, and when it is done, send you an email letting you know what happened. In that email you receive, I'll show you this one in a second when it generates, probably a minute and a half. But what you'll see is it's going to give you a link in addition to the CSV results. That link will take you to SLEIS and give the ability to download in a zip file the copy of record for every single facility that you just submitted, whether it's 1 facility or 1,000 facilities. The copy of records are individual reports specific to that individual facility. It's probably done. Yep. I can check here. That was the old one, wasn't it? Yep. I'll do this again. So so what you will receive is this email here. And it will load a lot faster in your email than mine and say, hey, 1 of 1 reports or however many reports successfully attempted out of the number you attempted to submit. Again, the batch summary and then the link, you will arrive at this page and you can download the zip file. When you do, you will find the PDF document, which is the copy of record for your facility. If you look at that, you have the signature page, just as you do submitting through the individual facility path, and then information about that facility. 2019 report for this company's facility, facility information, release points, controls, mission units, processes, and emissions.
So if you're familiar with the turnaround document from Redbud, everything was laid out one at a time. You had one emission unit and that process and those emission records. But in SLEIS, they're grouped together to show all emission units together, all release points together. So it's a little bit different layout, but has all of the same information.
You can either download this. The reason why we set this as an option for the zip file to have all files individually per facility, that we wanted to give companies the option to download the stuff in an easy way. The easiest way is to zip one single zip file, but then give them the option to store the files however they want, either giving all facilities all files or storing a single file in a single facility. It's really up to you guys, as long as you keep the appropriate records on hand. Once you're done, if you go back, you can see now, if I look for submit reports, there's nothing there. If I go to view reports, you can see that the one I had just submitted now appears as submitted. And there are none any longer ready for submission. That's the bulk template process. And all I have for you for today.
Weren't you going to go over the reports on
yeah, I guess I could.
Right?
Sure. We covered this last time, but I can go over this again.
And then I'll do the takeaways.
So whenever you're at your company and facility, you have these reports. Go to the year. You have these reports in the lower right-hand corner. Full emissions report, CSV for total emissions by facility, mission unit, release point, or a process emission summary. So these are reports where you can grab information about your facility that is not going to appear in your copy of record report. Also, you can see that not only did I submit Monday, in the previous demonstration, but I now have submitted today for this facility. So there is a submission or a copy of record for each day that I submitted. You'll have one each time that it appears. You can always obtain that by saying view emission history to see the report. And again, if I want to request an amendment, I can make a request here. The one thing you all should remember is that in this file for this facility, I've now submitted confidential business information. The only way I can see that information in a report is if I come to the emissions inventory report unredacted file and open that. When I do, that CBI warning will be nice and bright and red on the very front of the screen at the top of the report, so you know that it has CBI. And within the document, down for process submissions, you can see that, which one is it? Yeah, right here. For this process, certain information has been redacted because it's considered CBI. CBI here and in a couple spots, I believe. But yeah, that was it.
So the key takeaways.
Yes.
Some of the takeaways: reports must be started before the template files can be used. So DEQ generates those 2019 reports, but the first action you need to do is start a report before you can go in and edit, or even before you can use the template. Emission unit and process records must be created via the user interface prior to using the templates. That was one of the questions I answered. You've got to build that out on the front end of SLEIS before using the template. If you already have existing emission unit and process records, then you can right away use the template for that. When downloading the templates, 2 files of reference codes are included, as Josh demonstrated. So the codes that you'll need to fill out those templates come with the template download. Some template fields are informational and will be ignored upon upload, like the emission unit description. I think Josh pointed out several of those during his demonstration. Some template fields are not used by Oklahoma DEQ, as we showed, like the ozone season days, and all of that can be found in the SLEIS file specifications document. The last one, file and column or header names should not be changed in the templates. I'm not sure if Josh mentioned that, but which he demonstrated that it's easy to get them mixed up if you have multiple versions going on, and there's no way to alleviate that because you cannot change the file name. You could put it in a different location on your computer. That may work. And don't change the header names because SLEIS is looking at that header, looking for that information and fields under that. So that is all that we have for you today. It looks like we're right on time. I don't see any more questions. Can you go back 2 slides? If you have any further questions, feel free to email us at aei@deq.ok.gov or give us a call. We have one more webinar in January that is more like our traditional webinar, going over common mistakes and how to calculate your emissions. It will not have another SLEIS component. So these webinars will be posted and you can view them again when you're getting ready to report your inventory. Thank you